Yeah, I'll record in case we say anything amazing that other people can benefit from. So, welcome. How you doing?
I'm well. I'm well. I was expecting more of a class come in, but yeah,
Well,
no,
yeah. Again, this is more like so. My office hours are during the day, and so I like to extend out some Zoom office hours in case people feel more comfortable actually seeing a face, rather
yeah,
than just emailing back and forth. I will host discussions. Those are usually going to be in the evening, based on a topic of what we're covering and so on. So, I mean, as we go through the early stages, people will begin to understand kind of how the process works. But I do like to offer the occasional Zoom office hour, just so we can actually see each other. This course is completely asynchronous, so none of this is mandatory. I cannot hold, kind of attending Zoom meetings for or against you, I guess is what I need to say. So anyway, we have Alexa here as well. So I don't know, how's it going so far? If you want to share anything or if you have any questions, just, go right ahead.
yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't have anything prepared. I guess I wasn't fully. I didn't. I just thought it was more of like I guess the laid back style, so I didn't have a question fully. But I guess one thing generally, I didn't fully read or get into mod two yet, but
Yeah.
I was just curious about what an artifact would entail. If there's anything specific that it had to be like any parameters around what it had to be.
I mean, so what I'm doing is I'm defining artifact as just about anything that we interact with in our culture that has the ability to generate meaning. And so, by that I mean when something generates meaning, it begins the process of interacting with our already pre-existing thought processes. And it does have the ability to perhaps influence how we see the world, how we perceive the world. And so I think it becomes, quite significant that we begin the process of understanding how to read this bombardment of material that we have coming at us. One of the detachment is one of the artifacts, and it's a film with Adrian Brody, and he plays a teacher. And one of the things that he's going to speak to in that artifact, and it's a classroom scene. So, right, so this moment, this snippet in this movie, then is an artifact. Graffiti's an artifact. Kind of advertising, still or commercials, artifacts, movies, music, you name it, Banksy, street art, all anything that we can interact with that has meaning. But Adrian Brody's character in this particular piece, he speaks to something called ubiquitous assimilation. And that is that we are constantly being bombarded by a more commercial element of our society that is trying to impact and influence the way we live. And so one of the things that's being taken away from us is our ability to read something and form, in our own imagination what something looks like, as well as then, meaning behind it. We are constantly being told by news sources how we should feel about things. We are being handed images hand over fist, rather than reading and using our own imagination to create the images. And this is very impactful, and this is relatively new, within the past 40, 50 years. There was a gentleman by the name of Neil Postman who wrote a book in the 1980s, and I remember reading this in graduate school. It was called Amusing Ourselves to Death, and he was talking about just television. If we were amusing ourselves to death back in the 1980s, what are we doing now? So a lot of this has to do with, again, your ability to understand that even if something is perceived as just entertainment, there's usually a world of meaning behind it, whether we want to realize it or not. And it's not to say that authors and artists have a particular agenda prior to creating an artifact or something that they're going to hand to our culture, kind of to kind of interact with. No, not at all. Sometimes that is the case. We would call that more propaganda. But often an artist puts something out there and they really leave it up to us to interpret it and find what meaning is there. And I'll stop in a second because I can go on and on. So I didn't watch the Super Bowl halftime show. I took my dog for a walk during the halftime show, but I was told I should watch this. I was told that there was a lot of meaning, the artifact that is, right? So the Super Bowl itself is this huge artifact that contains all these little snippets and moments, everything from, kind of, Taylor Swift, how the national anthem is going to be played. We go crazy over that these days and how people are going to behave during the national anthem. So, but I was told in particular this year that the halftime show with Kendrick Lamar had a lot of I guess I don't want to misphrase the person who was telling me about this, but I guess they kept on saying symbolism or not even hidden meaning, more overt meaning. Now, I haven't seen it yet. I can't speak to it. But this tells me then this individual had more of an agenda going into the creation of their art. Whereas, again, some artists do, some artists don't. So I guess, again, with Artifact, we are talking about anything from even a brand on a brand name or something, like take Nike for example. I mean, the Nike swoosh, that symbol alone stands for so many different things to so many people. It could simply mean, kind of the company itself, but Nike is the god of victory. Okay, so we have this kind of connection to kind of greatness in terms of Greek gods and victory. It's connected to amazing athletes as well as kind of this element of success and high achievement and dominance. Nike is connected to this attitude of just trying and just doing something, but then it also gets connected to dare I say, kind of unfair labor practices. It gets connected to exploitation. It gets connected. So artifacts also have the ability to have multiple unfolding meanings. One of my favorite, poets is Walt Whitman, and he speaks so often in his poetry about how complex we are as people. I contain multitudes within me. I am many within one. And so you have to look at artifacts that way as well. Sometimes things will be definitely more clear cut and like, you know what? That's what that stands for. That's what that means. Whereas the beauty of dialogue and conversation is that we each, because of our own past experiences, which are so varied and different, yet so similar, yet very different, right? We have to recognize that, again, the variety, that I can see something completely different from how somebody else sees it. And to say somebody is wrong is somewhat problematic, or to shout them down and not let them have a voice, even more problematic. So hopefully that gives you a little more of a background on Artifact and what I mean by that.
Yeah, definitely did. I personally am a Kendrick Lamar fan, so I may
Okay.
actually evolve that into it because that just gave me some good ammo potentially. Um, but yeah, no, I mean that was I think you kind of nailed it with whoever explained that to you. I mean there's a lot of symbolism
Yeah,
in how he writes his music, anyways, and how what he brings to
sure.
the table. But in the past year, he had a whole I don't know if the person explained it to you in this way, but had a whole sort of beef with this other rapper who Drake,
Is this
who's
Drake? Yes, they explained a little bit of the Drake, kind of conflict and so on. So, I mean, I have to get in there. I mean, I've had a lot going on, so I haven't really been up to date on. I like to keep somewhat current with what's going on in our culture, and so I'm a little behind. I have to admit, I'm a little behind.
You definitely should watch when you were talking about artifacts before and you were talking
Yeah,
about performances and stuff.
yeah,
When you were done, I was gonna suggest you watch the halftime show because I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I'm not really into that.
yeah, sure.
I was in the city. So, I came home and I watched it and I had to watch it twice. And then I watched videos on like a deep dive on it because it was so interesting because there is all that beef with Drake. So most of the performance was him teasing that he was going to sing the song that he's in a lawsuit for and teasing that.
Mm.
So that's what a lot of people were focused on. But if you really actually paid attention, crazy symbolism about just what's going on in the world right now.
Okay,
Because it's like the show. I'll just tell you one little thing and then I think you should watch it. It starts off with Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam
okay.
talking to the audience, and then Kendrick's like, the revolution will be televised. You picked the wrong person at the right time. So right at all after that, the whole show was insane. And I'm
Okay.
not the biggest Kendrick fan. Like I can appreciate his music. I'm just not really into rap, but it was fantastic. And if you don't see the symbolism in it, you're blind. Like it's right
Okay.
in your face.
Okay.
It was amazing,
Well, the
really.
revolution will not be televised. I mean, so he's borrowing. So what he's doing there is that's a reference to Gil
Mm-hmm.
Scott-Heron, and a song from the '60s. The revolution will not be televised. And to me, I always considered that song one of the first rap songs, and it's not recognized as such because Gil Scott-Heron is being poetic. He's speaking over. Kind of, the music in that particular piece, which I find interesting. So I'm definitely going to have to take a look now because I'm a fan of Gil Scott Heron. And I think it's interesting that hip hop, when hip hop, I studied hip hop, I wrote part of my dissertation, I wrote about Public Enemy. And so, it's interesting to look at the history of hip hop in terms of its evolution because in the beginnings, it was more about fun. And then it's interesting to watch hip hop become politicized over the years. And so, for example, one of the first politicized songs is from it's called it's The Message by Grandmaster Flash. And he speaks about living in the Bronx and the conditions of living in the Bronx, the burnt out, poverty-ridden Bronx back in the early 1980s. And um, so I'm always curious when, again, individuals are using their platform to get a message out there. I personally, because of the nature of how things are these days, I do not express any opinions whatsoever that are my own in regard to and really so much that's taking place. It's become so challenging to actually have a voice. I've had students ask me over and over again, "Oh, what's your take on this?" And I'm like, "Nope, not doing it, not going there," which is unfortunate that we've gotten to that point. I mean, I don't feel completely stifled, but nonetheless, I always find it very interesting when hip hop artists, kind of use their platform. For a while, I was friends with, I don't know if this name's going to ring a bell, Immortal Technique, who is an underground hip hop artist who really, I met him at a 9/11 Truth movement. I grew up in a neighborhood where we lost a lot of individuals to 9/11, some of my closest friends. So I went and I just wanted to investigate more about what happened that day. So I had what I perceived to be is a wealth of knowledge about people's perspectives on the event. And I met this individual, Immortal Technique. Look him up if you want. I'm going to tell you, he's pretty out there, and pretty hardcore. So, all right. So now I'm curious now that there's a Gil Scott Heron lead in to Kendrick Lamar's performance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
and
that, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, you can go.
I was just saying I think that's why I've been so attracted to Kendrick because I think there's many artists that I think especially when they get to the fame level of somebody like Drake who kind of lose the spark of that lyric writing and that expression and to some degree and I think Kendrick has always been special in that way where he seems to always be able to bring that symbolism in and stays I think fairly true to himself and I think that was really also the major symbolism in this is that he I think that's also what kind of ended the beef is it kind of just showed clearly who both people were and
Okay.
I kind of put the nail in the coffin with the performance, which was pretty awesome. But yeah, that,
You're making me think that maybe I know we're running out of time, but I feel as though maybe I should find the a video of the performance and toss it in as a fifth artifact to be written about. It seems like as though it has that much weight and it's current. So I think after we're done today, I'm going to toss in the halftime show as a fifth artifact. That way I have to watch it, which will be good for me, and I can kind of also kind of experience it and gain I guess I always like to believe that it's important to gain a heightened sense of understanding of what's taking place in our culture at any given time. I think it's important to be informed. So this will help me as well. Though I tend to tune out the news, I do quite well with that. Things that are important will eventually get to me. But Alex, I'm sorry, you were going to say something as well?
Yeah, I think with the whole like rappers being activists and everything, a lot of people were mad after his halftime performance because of what he was standing up for and everything. So people were tweeting, "Oh, when did rappers get political? I don't like this kind of music, blah 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 blah." And I'm like, there some of these people like Eminem, a lot of people now are like, when did Eminem get so political? That's how Eminem has always been. You're just not really listening. So it's the same thing with Kendrick. People are mad. They're like, why is he doing this now? He's kind of always made
Yeah,
music like that.
yeah. I mean, there's I mean, I think it's interesting, like, because growing up, one of my favorite bands was Rage Against the Machine. And there was always something contradictory in the sense that the industry that they rage against, they also need them to produce their music and get it out there. There's always going to be that you need the machine in some ways to help you.
Yeah, kind of
Um,
like Green Day.
right, so like Green Day to become successful. So I find that fascinating, this idea that, okay, when did, well, I mean, it's been taking place for a long time. I mean, if you're not familiar with Public Enemy, there's a band you can start with right there. I mean, I wrote my dissertation about, I grew up in New York City. I'm actually talking to you from Manhattan right now. And so, one of the things that was taking place in the 1980s was that there was a lot of racial conflict, and it was very unfortunate. And there was also a lot of racial violence that was taking place. And so I wrote my dissertation about this idea of masculinity in crisis when it comes to racial identity. And so I did, I had to look at, I went and I looked at literature, and that was Tom Wolfe, Bonfire of the Vanities. I looked at Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee. I had a great conversation with Spike Lee about it. But Public Enemy was the rap group that I looked at the time, and I was lucky enough to have a conversation with Chuck D, who considered himself at that time to be an activist. And so we're talking about the late 80s, early 90s here. So I get it. There were some groups that were out there that were really just having a good time, but there were certainly others that had a message in their music, and they were trying to influence and impact culture. If you're not familiar with KRS-One, he is one of the beginning hip hop artists who wanted to create. I guess one of the movements he started was HEAL, which was Human Education Against Lies, and he brought in a series of hip hop artists to kind of to band together to bring better, more positive messages to kind of more disenfranchised communities. So I find hip hop fascinating. I mean, I'm first generation hip hop. Um, when I was a kid in 1977, there was a blackout in New York City, and so when the lights went out, a lot of stores got looted, and one of the things that was stolen, this is fact, was turntables. And this is the beginnings of the, so it started out with the DJ on the corner, like DJ Herc, just kind of spinning some records, and then guys started rapping over the beat. And then we have, kind of the birth of hip hop. But one story I do want to just kind of quickly get to in regard to, kind of how music, how we can overlook things. I was teaching, I don't think it was a freshman comp class, it was another class. It was at a 4-year university, and I just remember playing the song, and the lyrics in the song really romanticized kind of this life of money and drugs and cars and women and so on. And it was really, I played it for the class, and as we discussed the lyrics, everyone was like, man, I've listened to this song dozens of times. I've never actually looked at the lyrics to see how really not just degrading, but like more or less harmful the lyrics could be perceived. Long story short, we finished this discussion, and I'll never forget, his name was Vern. And then after we finished the discussion, everyone has this newfound knowledge about this song and the meaning behind it. And then Vern goes, "Yeah, but it's got a dope beat." And that was it. That was it. The dope beat won, man. As long as there's a beat over something that we're grooving with, you'd be amazed at the lyrics that hide behind it.
Yeah,
I've always found that fascinating.
to be honest, was a probably a larger Drake fan. This is just more on topic of this, but prior to the whole sort of fallout that happened. But I realized, I think over time with listening to Kendrick's music more recently, and with how sort of the things that he sort of brought up about about Drake, that I was definitely more of a Drake fan for his production in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was
I mean,
I
and
was
that's something we can appreciate. I mean, certainly that's something we can appreciate. You know what I mean? But again, that then, you know, um, we have to continue to evaluate, I guess. I mean, that's that's how we grow as a person is continue to question things and their impact and their value in our lives, of course. So, interesting. Yeah.
under artist that you had mentioned. I just wanted the Immaculate. There's a
Immortal. I'm sorry.
Immortal Time. That was it.
Yeah, Immortal Technique is his name. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He has his own label. It's called Viper Records because he even has a song with Pinocchio in the background. Because he doesn't want anyone telling him what he can say or do. So he created his own label, which is Viper Records. And again, some of his stuff, I don't want to say anything more than, hey, man, you want to check out someone who is seriously underground, who refused to sign with a label so he can stay honest to himself. He's certainly someone to check out. Him and there's groups like Vinnie Paz, Jedi Mind. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them.
Jedi Mind.
Yeah, yeah. So Technique is kind of in the same class with them. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm here to take questions. I'm really enjoying this conversation. It's only the three of us, but this is fantastic. That we can have this nice little intimate moment on a Wednesday, snowy Wednesday morning. But the assignment itself, all right. So again, this was a lot of this was I just kind of poured out the entire writing process, trying to get everyone to understand how one of the most difficult things to do is just to sit down and try and write without working and understanding the entire writing process. I mean, that's where writer's block comes into play. That's when we begin the process of taking shortcuts. I have to say that, for the first assignment, by far, these were some of the most engaged, involved posts that I've had from students in a decade. I mean, I was really impressed with everybody in regards to what they wrote about themselves and the effort they put forward. I try and answer, I like answering the first post myself just to show, and model, I guess, kind of, how to put that effort in, as well as I think it's important to have a sense of vulnerability. We are human beings. We live, we experience life. We do not exist uh two-dimensionally, and experience happens to us, and writing is one of the most amazing ways to connect with ourselves, to better understand ourselves and the world around us. So I always encourage individuals to journal about things and to write about things when they are, especially in moments of either confusion, could be about careers, could be about academic paths, or those moments in life when we experience great joy. It's always great to kind of celebrate and write about it, as well as, of course, when something comes to us that leads to a sense of trauma and suffering. We don't do well at processing, and I think writing allows us certainly to connect with ourselves on a completely different level. Even when I write from notebook to pen. Um, Versus typing, it's a completely different experience for me. So I do encourage that, and I will encourage that, because a lot of what I believe should be taking place in the freshman composition course is not just a question of, let's learn, kind of some more of the rules of grammar, punctuation, mechanics. I'm not a grammarian myself. A driver's manual is like 50 pages long. A writer's reference is like 500. I mean, I don't know who decided to come up with all these rules in regard to communication, but certainly if we don't know something, we can look it up. I mean, it's not the end of the world. However, rather than focus on that kind of hardcore grammarian approach, my approach is for you to hopefully use this course to better understand yourself and the world you live in, to become the hero of your life. So often especially in a culture where, and I will say, ubiquitous assimilation is taking place. Um, we really need to get to know ourselves, and I think that's something that we often just kind of glance over rather than taking the hardest look, which is at our own lives, because this is the only life that we get. And we should really step up and be the protagonist and the hero of our own story. And so that is, kind of my encouraging thematic perspective that I take, especially in a course like freshman composition. So, but yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we have like 7 minutes left because Zoom, the college used to pay for Zoom, so I could have long Zoom discussions. Now they don't pay for it, so I get 40 free minutes. So our sessions are 40 minutes long, which, during the pandemic they were paying for more things. Now everyone's cutting costs, so
That's
this is where
crazy,
we're.
especially because earlier today weren't classes all asynchronous?
But I think I'm supposed to be using something else. I think I'm supposed to be using Teams or something. I don't know. I'll have to
Oh yeah.
I think, yeah, I'll have to revisit that, revisit that. I don't like Teams, so
That's what we
um
used in Oneonta. I did not like it either.
I'm not, I really, in fact, I had to log in for a meeting recently and I had three different Teams links and I was in and then I got kicked out and then I couldn't get back in and I was stuck. I missed half the meeting because nobody was letting me back in to the meeting. It was very complex. And so I find Zoom, I don't think we need more than 40 minutes usually for a conversation or a discussion. But I think it'll work is what I'm saying. So, but I'll upload this video for everyone to see our what we discussed. So, I mean, any other questions or concerns thus far?
So if I were to start the develop paragraphs today, I
Yeah,
would be able to use the Super Bowl performance.
go for it. I'm going to put it out
Okay.
there. I'm saying yes, yes.
Okay,
So
thank
you
you.
you are you are here on the front line of yes. Yeah, yeah, because I like to be adaptable. I know somebody mentioned something in the group me about Chaplin's The Great Dictator and that monologue. And don't get me wrong, that is a fabulous, fabulous monologue, but there's only so much. And so I try and limit the kind of the number of choices, of course, just to keep it within a reasonable range. And so yeah, it's a great suggestion. But at the same time, we got to keep to what's there. So of Rice and Hen, which is a very interesting cartoon from over 50 years ago. And then we have Newsroom, which is yeah, it's a very powerful opening to a TV show where it's the discussion about is America great? Then we have Detachment, just kind of this quick classroom scene from Detachment, which is the shortest of the artifacts. And then we have one of my favorites, which is I'm not sure if you're familiar with Carl Sagan, but Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot is just very touching. It's there's a humility that's associated with this idea, this concept that um I mean, here we are it refers to Earth as this speck of dust suspended in a sunbeam, and yet we walk around as though we have so much knowledge about our existence in the universe, and there's a humbling presence. I have my. It's funny because a lot of people in my family are very religious, and my spirituality, tends to be quite different because I believe that you know we're all connected. We're all made from what the universe is made from the very beginning. And so I have this heightened sense of universal connectivity that kind of guides me in my life. So yeah, Sagan's speech it's quite amazing. He was one of the first people that warned us of a nuclear winter back in the 1970s. Whereas if there were actual nuclear weapons that were fired at other cities, at other nations, the incendiary process would cover the entire Earth with a gray cloud that would destroy all vegetation in life. That's the sense of mutual assured destruction that has been with us for quite a while now. So, But yeah, I think these four artifacts will be good. Like I said, I changed them up. I'm going to add the halftime show once we finish, and yeah. So again, you're working these paragraphs. You're going to want to brainstorm in advance, and then develop those thesis statements. Always remembering a thesis statement is an opinion statement. So what are you trying to say? In my opinion, what? And you don't have to write in my opinion, but in my opinion, right? We take that out. Kendrick Lamar, what does he do? Enlightens. He delivers. What is this strong verb that's associated with what you want to say? He does during this performance, and then you grab those examples that help support your claim, and that's what you'll be doing for this assignment. It's I like to start with paragraph writing. I sometimes I'm not sure where students are with their writing. The one thing that is challenging in a fully asynchronous class that I would be able to observe, take note of, and assist with in a face-to-face class is individuals who English is their second language, and so it's a lot harder in an online class for me to kind of grasp everyone's kind of writing capacity and what I can best bring to assist them in the process. And online, it's one of those things. It's a little more challenging, which is why I like it when we have greater attendance. But it's okay. It is what it is, man. I mean, I roll with anything. Oliver was here. Oh wait, Oliver is here. Oliver, see him on the couch. Oliver's chilling out with me. Eventually on GroupMe, I'll say post your pets. We'll have a post your pets day. Yeah, he's with me wherever I am. So,
Nice.
I don't know. Any other questions?
Well, I was just going to say on the same token of you
Yeah,
bringing up how impressed you were with the intros,
yeah.
which I think makes, I mean, just validates how I was feeling because I was looking through some of those and it was like very impressed just how like deep and personal some of them got, and I was almost intimidated when I was first writing it just because some of them were so well written and so good. But
Yeah. Be inspired. I mean, I've had moments in class. I'll never forget. Her name was Megan. I remember her last name, but I'll leave her anonymity. This is a girl who had anxiety issues all semester. She was in an introduction to literature class, and our final project, was about again kind of combining the literature and learning about self. And I'll never forget, like, here's this timid, shy, person who the last day of class did one of those Robin Williams from Dead Poet Society. She said, "May I stand on the desk in the front of the room?" And so she put herself completely above us in this moment, and expressed all these personal insights. And yeah, I mean, I believe in having a class be, more of a learning community. And one of the things that I studied, which, again, all professors are different in regard to what they study. My background is literature and philosophy. That's why I'm not a grammarian. I'm not someone who studied rhetoric and linguistics. And so, but some of my, kind of readings over the years in terms of educational philosophy come from individuals like Pablo Freire and Henry Giraud. And these are individuals who saw like one is called pedagogy of the oppressed. And so I went to Catholic school for 12 years. And so you want to talk about a pedagogy that is oppressive. I mean, I lived in constant fear, when I was in high school, especially the early years of being hit by brothers and nuns. It was always about fear of punishment. Education shouldn't be about fear of punishment or failure. So I learned a lot from studying Paulo Freire, and Henry Giraud came up with something called critical pedagogy, where he states that the more that your students have a historical knowledge of who you are, and the more you begin to
To
garner
garner.
and get that from them, you will have a better experience. You will have a more personal and a deeper experience, and that's that's my approach. That's what I look for, and that's what I go for. And so, it can be intimidating at first, but think of it as empowering. Because I was a very timid. I didn't know I was going to become a professor. I studied a lot of different things, and let me tell you, public speaking was one of my greatest fears. and now I speak to audiences for a living. And so we get there eventually, but it's not as though I still don't have my moments where I'm nervous when I have to begin the process of engaging individuals. Um, when I played baseball, I was a pitcher. I love to pitch. I was terrified before every time I took the mound. But the only problem was I was really good. There was no reason for me to be terrified. But there's something about that fear that kind of it's primal and it can drive us to do great things when we can control it. So, yeah, no, I really was so delightfully impressed, and yeah, I hope everyone kind of got a sense of that through my comments and so on. So, it says we got like 2 minutes left, but it also says that I've already it's asking me to upgrade right now, which is pretty funny. That's the world we live in. It's
Well,
great.
one against mod two, I guess, was just that, I guess, being that it is short form, and you mentioned the thesis statement, but I guess like every other structure of paragraph, being myself, I probably have to brush up on that anyways, which I know we're going to do. But being that short form, is there structure to it, or is it just a thesis and then however you?
Again, this is so, standard. You'll see, if you look at Mod 2, some of the, kind of links will lead you to kind of paragraph development. So, think of this paragraph as really a short essay. You know what I mean? So, when we get to longer writing, an essay will have an introduction where you will introduce the thesis. And then from there, you'll have paragraphs that will be like, again, they are mini structures in themselves. So that thesis statement becomes what's called a topic sentence for a paragraph. It changes. And so therefore then we have these supporting ideas within the umbrella of that thesis statement. So for this, these are short. So we can refer to it either way. We can say, okay, this is your thesis statement or topic sentence. Right now it's interchangeable. And so yeah, so the structure forward is offer support, and we never want to leave our support without some sense of analysis, right? So we offer, the example, and we explain how that example supports our claim. Okay. So I'm being told we got less than a minute left here. So okay, I think we're up. I think they're going to shut us off here any second. So is that it? Are we good?
Yep.
I'm good. Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. It was nice to meet you both, and
Nice to meet
I
you.
I really appreciate this. This was great. The three of us. Hey, I'll do this anytime.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. You too.